Hey everybody, it's Joel Tappan here, and I've been playing Next War Vietnam, as you can see on the screen here. And what I have been doing is using the Vassal module because I don't have the table space at the moment to set up Next War Vietnam. Now, it doesn't require all that much table space. It's really just one map for the operations here, the hex grid. And then there's a secondary map that you can see here in Vassal. I'll just go ahead and make this real big so we can see it real good. So there's a second map sheet. It is a full-size map sheet, and they're both arranged horizontally, and I just don't have the table space to use both of them at the same time right now, so I'm playing on Vassal. Thought I'd give you an update on the goings-on. Now, usually I'll play a whole turn of this and then start over because I think it really does take a turn to kind of figure out the sequence of play, and because every game's different, kind of get a sense for the terrain, the road networks, the overall situation. It's worth exploring it one practice go around before getting into it in earnest, because you're going to make some mistakes along the way. Lots of little things to remember in this system. So in turn one, as is expected, the Chinese Air Force pretty much smacked around the Vietnamese Air Force, got pretty roughly handled on turn one. The United States is involved, and their involvement's about to increase in just a moment. I haven't increased it for the Philippines, but pretty sure the Philippines are going to join. We've got to make a die roll for that. That'll throw in some new units into the theater. And the United States has sent air units from Japan to South Vietnam, but they got to spend supply points to keep them there. Hopefully they can get Thailand on board and use the Thailand air bases, because that would be much more convenient for the U.S. Air Force, at least. Navy got chased out of the Spratly Islands. At least the carriers got chased out of the Spratly Islands. A U.S. Surface Action Group was able to remain in there and contest control of the sea zone, but alas, the die rolls were unfavorable, and China did get control of the sea zone here. They're going to be able to try for control of the inshore box and make a landing on the Spratlys with their Marines here momentarily, or at least in turn two, I should say. It took a whole turn to get to the inshore box from the coast of China. They were able to take the Paracels Island Group using their airborne troops, and so they'll be probably taking some of those guys out of there and sending them back to the operational theater here shortly. Now, they don't have control. The control of the South China Sea is contested, but they do have control of the Gulf of Tonkin, but the Vietnamese SAG came out of the inshore box, so they might be able to contest this in this turn. So that's what's gone on over here. Now, this is a pretty big map, but most of this is not in play unless you're playing the combined game. So we're basically going to ignore the Taiwan Straits, East China Sea, the Ryukyus. We're going to ignore those things for, at least for control purposes in this game. They're going to be contested for the duration of the game. Because we're only playing the Vietnam side. I think that this would be a fun one to combine with Taiwan and Vietnam, so maybe we'll find a way to do that. Over on the operational side, there's been a three-pronged offensive, two from the north, really. Now, there's a good road here, a good road here, a good road here. The coastal route is preferred because you can use your naval forces to support it, and the terrain is open. You only got to get past one bottleneck of jungle, and then you're threatening Haiphong. The central area, you got to fight through jungle to get out into the open terrain north of Hanoi. And so it's a little bit tougher sledding through here, but they made good progress, punching a pretty serious salient into the Vietnamese line, forcing them to redeploy some of their units. And I perhaps wasn't aggressive enough with these guys. I was sending a lot of resources to the western thrust. The guys coming from the west here crossed over the borders, a lot of open terrain as you follow the river here. And so they were able to inflict some pretty heavy losses on the Vietnamese from the 2nd Military Region. But they did take some losses in return, and they are still trying to clear Yen Bai, which is a city with an airbase. And so there's a clearing operation going now on there. That's going to give a little breathing space to these guys that are defending the approaches to Hanoi. This is a serious threat here. If they had been able to clear that in one turn, the Vietnamese would be in real trouble because they got another turn before they get reinforcements coming up from the south. And so this combined force here could have made a serious play at the approaches to Hanoi. I'm not sure how wise it was to send all my Marines after the Spratlys, but holding those island groups, it's 5 points a turn holding them. I mean, 10 points a turn just hanging on to these things. That's a chunk of change, and it's worth fighting the U.S. Navy about and perhaps increasing U.S. involvement. But if Marines start getting involved in things, it could get messy for China. So we'll see how things develop. The B-2 strike on the S-300 batteries was one of the significant United States contributions. Unfortunately, I forgot one of the rules with regard to the S-300s, and that is that they're considered hardened targets. What the S-300s do is they provide a sense of air defense support to the operational map. So basically, normally you don't get to use your air defense units once you cross over your own border into enemy territory. Your air defense network is covering your own territory. Once you get to enemy territory, it's harder to intercept and protect your own forces moving forward. The S-300 batteries give you an ability to project air defense moving forward. Now, in this game, they're not represented by counters, but rather there's notional counters here that are basically you're given an umbrella that's going to say cover the entire map here. So it's an abstraction, a necessary abstraction, but it's meant to represent perhaps mobile batteries that the advancing forces would take along with them that would be hard to target. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So the B-2s went in, no fighter support, just totally stealth mode, and they pounded them. And I forgot to reduce that. So they got a strike 2 result, but it's impossible to get a destruction result on a hardened target in one throw of the dice. So, and unfortunately, they didn't reset, so that didn't really accomplish a whole lot. Unless I send in B1s, but I'd have to send them in unsupported. That's ill-advised. Could try sending some special forces after it. That might be another way to keep the damage up. If you knock out one of them, then you can just all gang up, go all out on the other one. Once that's knocked out, the Chinese are going to have a hard time operating their ground units with especially when the U.S. Air Force gets involved. The air bases have gotten pounded. There's 1, 2 Vietnamese bases that have been destroyed. One in Hanoi is damaged. This one here is being cleared. So that's going to curtail their ability to sortie aircraft in this next turn. The Chinese took damage to one base here and almost lost their choppers. Their choppers had to redeploy to a new base, and I think they're actually out of range even now. Let's see, I think it's this one. Yeah, they can almost support the theater, but they're going to have to rebase again. So these choppers haven't really been a whole lot of help for the Chinese Western force. Attack choppers up here, they're not in the hex grid. They're actually considered to be 7 hexes away from the leading edge of the map. And so they've been able to support things, but that's the situation after, I think this represents 2 days of fighting, so a pretty good 2 days. Now, the initial surprise is gone, so that's a column shift in ground combat that is going to be gone, but it also means with a good chunk of the Air Force knocked out that the Chinese Air Force is going to be able to do a lot of support of ground units in the days to come. So that is the situation. This is Next War Vietnam, and that's a look inside the game.